Hey there, drone fans. Rick here again from Drone Valley. In today's clip, I'd like to answer the top 5 questions that we've received on the final rules for the remote identification of unmanned aerial vehicles that was published about a week ago by the FAA. Now, the minute they published that document, I immediately sat down, started reading through all 470 pages of it, as well as the addendums it referenced, so I had a real clear understanding of exactly what the FAA was expecting of pilots like me 32 months out. I also put a clip together about a week ago explaining the nuts and bolts of exactly what these rules mean for any pilot out there flying a drone that weighs more than 250 grams. Now, a couple of things have happened since then. First off, we got a ton of correspondence. We had a bunch of emails and phone calls and comments on the YouTube channel asking a lot of really good questions, which to me is a good thing because that means you're interested, you're curious, you want to play by the rules, and I'm happy to answer those questions as quickly as I can. The challenge is we got so many of them that I couldn't get back to everybody. So I thought, let me sit down, I'll look at all the questions that came in, I'll pick the top 5 most common questions and answer those in a video. And I promise you, I'll do this every week if I have to, because I view this channel as a way for all of us to get smarter together. So if you're confused about something or have questions, drop them in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them as quickly as I can. And if I have to put a clip together every week following up on this, I definitely will. The other thing that surprised me was the amount of anger out there. There's a lot of people that are really angry about these rules and they feel like they're being impinged, their freedoms are being curtailed, and who's the government to be putting these rules out there and all the rest of that stuff. And that part confused me. And I've actually seen a couple of YouTube channels take that approach as well. And I thought, let me answer the questions, but let me take a minute here in the beginning to editorialize just a little bit to give you my perspective on it and why I don't think it's that big a deal. And I know I get a lot of grief for that. I caught a lot of heat for it in comments on the last clip, but give me a second to explain what I'm thinking. So again, I'm a simple guy. And anytime I do something that has the potential to impact somebody else, there kind of have to be rules of engagement, right? So the best analogy I can use is my car. Now, a lot of people will kind of go with the firearm argument about, well, it's like firearms. It's not like firearms because in this world, we have rights and we have privileges. Now, rights are things that are guaranteed by some document out there. Now, firearms are guaranteed by the Second Amendment, so you have the right to bear arms. You don't have the right to drive a car. That's a privilege. You don't have the right to fly a quad. That's a privilege. And I know that sounds offensive to some people, but with a car, you have to pass a test, you have to register, you have to get insurance in most states, you have to prove that you can drive that car. So all those things are sort of impinging on your freedom to drive the car, but if you want to drive the car on the road with other people around you, you have to prove that you can do it responsibly, and if you misbehave, there are consequences. So if you decide you don't want to do 25 in a school zone and you start doing 60 through a school zone, you're probably going to get a ticket and you may lose your license. Drones are out in the public domain and you're flying those in the air, you're around other aircraft, you're around over top of people, you're near people. There's potential for interacting with other people. So I don't think it's that big a deal for the privilege of flying a drone, for me to have to register it, and for me to broadcast that registration number, which is really all they're doing with this remote ID identification ruling that came out. They're saying the same number that's on the side of your drone, it's on the side of every one of my drones that are registered. There's another one, you can see it there, and I think here you go. There's one on the top of the Phantom 4. Those numbers are my registration number, which says this drone is owned by me, and I'm flying it. Now, up until now, that was usually was inside the drone. They changed that about a year ago to be outside the drone. But okay, there's my registration number. You know who owns the drone. If I do something nefarious with it and it crashes, you can trace that back to me and come talk to me about what I did stupid, right? All we're saying with this remote ID rule is we're broadcasting that number. That's all it is. You're not broadcasting your home address, your phone number, pictures of your kids. It's just the registration number. And when you think about it, people say, well, the government doesn't have a right to do that. They absolutely do. So the laws that are set up for speeding have to do with municipalities, with state, sometimes in some cases federal, if they're interstate roads. They set the rules. And if you want to drive on that road, you got to play by the rules or you stand the chance of getting a ticket. The FAA has purview over the skies, right? Anything, it's written in the law, anything from the ground to the heavens is their purview. They're a federal agency that has responsibility for safeguarding that airspace, and they get to set the rules. Now, when people say, oh, they got too draconian with these rules, you have to remember they could very well have said, we haven't figured out this drone thing yet. We're grounding all drones. You guys don't get the right to fly those drones until we figure it out. Now, that would have been a terrible situation. They could have absolutely done that with the stroke of a pen. Less dramatic than that. They could have said, you know what? These hobbyist guys are creating a lot of problems out there. We're going to put a test together the Part 107, anybody who passes that test can fly a drone. Anybody who doesn't, you can't fly the drone. So there's a lot of ways this could have gone weird for us. And instead they said, you know what? These are very popular devices. They're owned by citizens of our country. We have to take that gigantic body politic into consideration when we make these rules. Let's find some compromise between these draconian restrictions where nobody can fly until they pass the test, or everybody can fly with no rules, and they settled on the middle. So for me, the rules that they put in place today, I think, are reasonable. I don't think it's a big deal if you're a reasonable flyer. You're not going to be in trouble. Just fly your drones. In 32 months, they're going to figure out a way to broadcast the ID from the drone. If you own a drone today, there are going to be modules out you can snap on the top of your drone. It takes care of the legislation. And just get out there and fly your drone. So for me, and that's kind of my attitude about the whole thing. And I know people are going to be upset about me saying that, but it's the best part about having a channel is you can have an opinion, and I'll take the heat down below. But the logic is solid there. And we can have opinions all day long, but there are some facts here. And the facts are the FAA controls the airspace. They put a set of rules out. And by the way, other pilots play by these rules. We're the only ones that are looking for an exception. If you own a plane, you've got a tail number. And in most cases, you've got an ADS-B broadcast unit in that plane sending out your position, your heading, your velocity, your tail number to anybody that can pick up that signal. And pilots, all you pilots out there that are official pilots that fly big planes, are some of the most responsible people I've ever met. They're the most serious, calm, contemplative, safety-oriented people on the planet, and they're up there flying. And then I come along as a newbie, a yahoo, putting up a drone, being reckless with it. I think it's important they understand what that tail number means. And I'll get into some of the safety things in a minute, but that's my 2 cents on it. So hopefully that makes sense to you and I haven't offended anybody. All right, let's get into the questions. So the first one has to do with freedom to fly. I just kind of addressed that. People are saying, I've got a freedom to fly. It's ridiculous that these toy drones can't fly in this airspace. We're not causing any troubles. I'm only going 50 feet in the air. The problem is you can't curtail that with the technology, right? You can't say, oh, well, Joe's a good guy. He's only going to fly at 50 feet in the air, so we'll sell him a drone that only goes to 50 feet. Some of these drones go 9 miles away, and I guarantee you there are people today that are going to walk into a store, buy a drone, walk out in the parking lot, stick a battery in it, and put it up in the parking lot and fly at 9.5 miles. You see them all over YouTube. They're posting clips about distance tests and stuff, clear violations of the visual line of sight requirement. That's a dangerous thing. There's a lot of yahoos out there that do dumb things with drones. So having the ability to fly, again, is a privilege. It's not a right. And if you want that privilege, you got to play by the rules. And I know I sound like your middle school teacher telling you that you can't be late for class. And I don't mean to be that guy, but I'm a responsible pilot and I love this hobby. I can't say that enough. I love this hobby. And every time somebody does something dumb with a drone, everybody looks at this hobby as being like a scary, dangerous thing. And let's get some legislation. Let's pay more attention to those drone flyers. I don't want that. So if you're going to be goofy with a drone, I don't want you flying. Find another hobby. Don't screw this one up for me, okay? All right, so the next one has to do with older drones. A lot of people had a question about, well, I own a drone already. Now, we're not going to keep drones 3 to 5 years because technology advances so quickly, you're probably going to buy a new one within the next 3 years, which is 32 months out. But if you don't, and you want to keep the drone you've got, there are modules coming that you pop on the top of the drone with a piece of Velcro, or maybe you glue it to the drone, and that module has a serial number on it. That's the number you'll register with the FAA. So when you're flying your older drone, that little beacon that's on top of it is broadcasting that serial number, so you've made the requirements legal. You're essentially ready to fly at that point. So you can fly your older drones. If you decide not to broadcast a remote ID, they could have, again, as the FAA said, look, if you don't broadcast a remote ID, you can't fly a drone. But they didn't. They said, if you're not going to buy the module and your drone can't broadcast the remote ID, just fly at one of those FAA approved sites. And that would have been pretty cool if that's where they stopped. But they went even further by saying, and the other thing is, we're going to expand those sites all over the country. So we're going to make it way easier now for schools and universities and churches and groups that get together to fly a lot to get those FAA sanctioned locations. So they're increasing the places you can fly with a drone that has no remote ID on it. And they're making it, legal for you to do that. So they're covering all their bases here, which I think is a wonderful thing. The next one had to do with not being safer. A lot of people like to make these arguments very dramatic, and it gets me so frustrated because when they say things like, this is not going to stop a single terrorist, I agree with you. Why do we have to go to the extreme there? This isn't about stopping a terrorist from flying into a scary location and doing something very, very bad. It's about stopping goofy pilots from doing bad things. Like, for example, an example I use all the time, and you've probably seen it in the comments, is if I was in my backyard, in my pool with my kids, and at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, every day, a drone showed up and hovered over my pool for 20 minutes and then flew off, I'd want to know who's flying that drone. I'm a responsible drone pilot. I know not to hover over somebody's backyard. I'll fly over backyards, not over people, but over backyards getting to my location, but I'm not going to hover because that's creepy. I want to know who that is. I don't know who that is today because I can't tell. It's just a white drone over my pool for 20 minutes every day. Could be a kid in the neighborhood, could be somebody 8 miles away. The minute they start broadcasting the remote ID, all I have to do is open up my phone, I get the remote ID, and I can call the cops and say, look, this guy's been harassing us. We're trying to enjoy the pool in the backyard. Every day at 4 o'clock, I got a white drone over my pool. Can you do something about it? The police can then look up that remote ID number, find out that Johnny Public is flying that, go there and say, John, you can't fly your drone over Rick's pool anymore. Stop it. You're being an idiot. So I think it's a good thing. It's not, again, to stop the bad guys, the really, really bad guys. They're going to find a way to do something terrible. There's nothing we can do to prevent it. As much as we try, they're going to get through with a lot of that stuff. This is more about keeping pilots responsible. If there's a wildfire and some yahoo decides to put a drone up to get a perfect shot of the wildfire, the fire police are going to know immediately, okay, that's a drone that shouldn't be here, and the guy standing 8 feet to our, or 80 feet to our right in that stand of trees over there, go talk to him and tell him to land the damn drone. So I think it makes the skies a lot safer. Plus, for me as a responsible pilot, I don't care if people know my remote ID because I'm not doing anything bad. I'm playing by the rules. I'm flying visual line of sight. I'm not flying over people. I'm not going above 400 feet. So just enjoy the hobby. It's not that big a deal. All right, the next one had to do with data storage. Now, I think where this confusion came from was originally in the proposal, there were two ways you had to broadcast your remote ID. One was broadcast from the drone. The second was a persistent connection from your phone over the internet to a database someplace. And that scared the bejesus out of me. And I came out strong against that. I said, I don't want anybody keeping track of my flights. I don't want data stored anywhere where people can parse through it 2 years from now. I don't know who's seeing it. What kind of court order do they need to see it, to review it? I don't want to get a ticket in the mail because I did something goofy by just hitting the edge of an NFZ or something. So they abolished that. So there is no data being collected. The FAA is not watching you fly. The only people that can read your remote ID are people that are within Wi-Fi distance from your drone. So for example, if you're flying a drone 8 miles away, pretty good chance they're going to be able to pick up the remote ID 8 miles away and come to you and say, why are you flying your drone 8 miles away? Stop doing that. You're breaking the visual line of sight. So there's no data being collected. There's no data from the FAA being collected. It's only local people that have a problem with the drone being where it is because you've done something goofy with it that'll have access to your remote ID. So there's no data storage whatsoever. And the last one has to do with the FAA monitoring. The FAA doesn't, I don't want to say they don't care about drones, but there's no way the FAA as a small organization can be out in the field with binoculars, you know, and a remote ID receiver looking for drones to go hassle people. That's not going to be the case. I think at worst, it's going to be local police. I don't mean at worst, but I mean at a minimum, it's going to be local police that somebody's doing something dumb, like you're flying over my pool for 20 minutes at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and they're going to get involved. And I've written down your remote ID, your digital license plate. I've handed it to the police. I've made a complaint. They're going to go talk to you and sell you, probably give you a warning and say, don't fly your drone over Rick's yard at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And that's the end of it. That's the way we handle things in a civil society. The bad stuff. This is the part I'm going to talk about at the end. Nobody asked about this, but I'll say it anyway. I do not agree, have never agreed, and stand in strong protest to the ability of the public to identify where I'm standing as a pilot. I'll say that again. I think they got it right up to that point. That identification of my location should only be in the hands of professionals. Local police, federal police, park police, people that have the ability to make that connection to me because I'm doing something goofy. Remember the example I gave you a minute ago where I said the thing's over my pool for 20 minutes? I don't want to know who Johnny is. I just want the serial number of the drone. I'm going to have the police who are chartered with handling that kind of complaint go talk to Johnny because they're skilled at that. They're professionals in that space. I'm not. So as a pilot, it worries me a lot. And a lot of the comments were around this, and I agree with you wholeheartedly that I don't want to have some angry homeowner who's misinformed about what a drone can do and where it can fly, know where I'm standing, so they can come over and at the least hassle me when I'm flying, which is interfering with a pilot with a drone in the sky, but at worst start yelling at me or accosting me, or worse even still, bad guys, bandits out there that are looking for drones in the sky, finding the pilot and demanding the controller because they can sell it on eBay. So I think that provision, that aspect of the provision is really troubling. And I'm going to spend a lot of time in future clips talking about that. I'm also investigating ways that we can have a voice around how bad an idea that is, because mark my words on this one, by the FAA providing the mechanism for somebody who's mad to find somebody who's flying a drone, they're right in the middle of that equation. And in chemistry, that's called a catalyst. It's the thing that starts that chemical reaction. If they don't provide that data, I get an angry guy, doesn't know where I'm standing. The minute they provide that data, they're the catalyst for whatever happens after that. It's no different than shouting fire in a crowded theater. You didn't cause the problem, but you started that stampede out and people got hurt, so you're responsible. I can't believe the attorneys at the FAA didn't look at that and say, wait a minute. These details should only be in the hands of trained professionals and they should be private. They shouldn't be available to everybody. So I'm still working on that. I'm not giving up on that aspect of it. But other than that, I'm thinking 90% of what they came out with was reasonable. It was balanced. They thought a lot about it. And the other thing, I got a lot of complaints about they don't listen to us. That couldn't be more wrong. They absolutely listened to the comments that were sent in, and they made changes to the proposal based on those comments. So your voice really does matter. And I said that out of the gate. Send in your opinions and your voice. Make sure that they hear what you care about and what you don't like about it. And they made some major fundamental changes in the way they've released these final rules. So all of that's upside for me. Anyway, that's it for today. I'm sorry if I got too deep into the editorializing here, but you can tell it's a passionate place for all of us that are flying because it does fundamentally change what we're doing with our drones. But I think it's a small step. I don't think it's that big a deal. And for all you guys out there that say, well, you give an inch, you'll give a mile, that's life. That's the way it goes. If you make the rules and I want the privilege to enjoy this hobby, I got to play by the rules. Now, if they change it and they start getting a little more draconian, I'll talk about that as well. But I'm keeping an eye on it. I'm sure a lot of you are as well. But all I can say from an advice perspective is it's a small step. It's 32 months away. A lot can change in that amount of time. I may not even be here in 32 months. I'm getting a little long in the tooth. Hopefully I will be. But anyway, get outside and fly. Don't worry about these rules right now. They're 32 months out. The tech will fix it. We'll figure it out. There'll be changes between then and now, but it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the hobby. Fly your drones. It's the best experience you can have. I'm getting excited just thinking about it because when I'm done with this clip, this guy will be up in the air flying over this back field near me. And it's just the best feeling in the world. And I know you guys know what I mean by that. So thanks an awful lot for watching. If I didn't get to your question today, drop it in the comments below. I promise you, I'll do these every week if I have to get through all the questions we've gotten because I want this to be a place where you can feel free to learn things and ask questions, try to get the answers you need, and just make the skies a little bit safer for all of us and a little bit more fun flying our drones. So that's pretty much it for today. Thanks again for watching. Oh, and if you haven't subscribed, I say this every time, what are you waiting for? We got a dot down there. Hit that subscribe button. Join the Drone Valley family. We have a ton of stuff coming up that's going to be really exciting, including a ton of giveaways that are coming up every month. So this is a place you want to definitely check back. Anyway, that's it. Thanks again for watching, and until next time, happy flying!